Hello, thanks for joining me. Ever since 1885, when Belgium's King Leopold took over the Congo as his personal property and made an immense fortune out of its rubber, Congo has been a byword for chaos and violence. Remember those dreadful turn-of-the-century photos of men, women and children whose hands had been lopped off by their overseers because they hadn't brought in enough rubber. And even when the situation improved, Belgium still ran the Congo by main force. Not surprisingly, independence in 1960 brought serious violence with it. The first elected Prime Minister of the Congo, Patrice Lumumba, appealed to the Russians for support and was murdered by soldiers who were probably funded by the Americans. Congo, with its immense natural resources, became a battleground for the superpowers. Katanga, the richest of its provinces, tried to secede. That brought more fighting. President Mobutu Sese Seko ran the country for 32 years, was one of the most corrupt leaders on earth. 6 decades after it had become independent, Congo still isn't at peace. When you go there, it always feels as though the place is just about to explode. I've been attacked various times by angry crowds there just for taking photographs. I was once almost lynched right outside my hotel in central Kinshasa when I went to buy a newspaper, and a kid tried to sell me a map of the country at the same time. He screamed blue murder when I said no, and an angry crowd gathered in an instant. I think I just escaped with my life. And yet it's a wonderfully exciting country. Superb wildlife, magnificent forests. Congolese music and musicians are famous throughout the length and breadth of Africa. The beauty of the cloud formations and the river Congo and the dark forests on either side of it are some of the most magnificent sights I've ever seen. But over the last 60 years, we in the outside world have allowed ourselves to think that the chaos and violence of Congo's past are really still in evidence there. Over the whole continent, we assume that Africa has got nothing but disease and hunger and civil war. In fact, the majority of African countries are peaceful and get by reasonably well economically. There are only 4 active wars on the continent now, and they're all fairly low level. For the most part, Africa's big problem isn't so much war and famine, it's corruption. When the Congo became independent in 1960 and violence exploded, colonial powers like Britain and France panicked and started offloading their African colonies as fast as they could. All sorts of new countries suddenly found themselves all on their own. When Zambia became independent in 1964, it had a grand total of 109 university graduates, and only 0.5% of the population had completed primary education. Yet, given a start like that, Zambia hasn't done too badly. The Democratic Republic of Congo, as we call it now, was the worst example of bad colonialism and has never been able to get away from the shadow of its past. But we really shouldn't think it's in some way typical of Africa as a whole. Thanks for joining me. Until we meet again, goodbye.